Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars-loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows, while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
And I'm Charles Rogers, and I was so excited today because we had the return of the gay Starbucks drink. But I drank the entire thing during the pre-meeting because it was 45 minutes long.
Oh.
So I was going to be like, oh yeah, I actually have, because for the last few weeks I haven't been able to justify the expense when I have coffee at home. And this week I was like, oh, I found out when my contract start date is for the 6-month gig. I can afford to go down and spend $5 on coffee. And then I drank the whole thing. So I just have a thing of ice now. I'm a disappointment, but then most tops are.
I'm sure Starbucks' ice is just as good as their drink, so...
Sort of an iced strawberry mush.
Mush.
A mush that I'll be periodically sipping.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get started, just a few things. Not as many as last time.
Some housekeeping.
I want to preemptively apologize. My sound is going to get progressively worse over the next 2 weeks. You can probably already hear it. I'm in the process of moving. So the books are already gone in my apartment. The paintings and photos and things are already gone. So you can probably already hear a little bit of an echo in the background. It's going to be worse next week. I'm doing my best, but I want to preemptively apologize for that. After the second week of July, sound's going to get a lot better, but that's what's going on. Before you come at me on Twitter and be like, why is your sound like that?
Why do you sound like shit?
It's because I'm moving, and as Bradley and I have demonstrated, we will get these fucking episodes out.
We'll get them. They might not be great, but they'll come out.
Might not be great, but they're coming out.
I love it.
I'm also continuing my Pride Month. Check out a different podcast that I was just made aware of its existence and shout it out. This week, I listened to a little bit of Dark Side Divas. Now, because of the nature of my week, didn't get to listen to as much of it as I wanted to. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, the contract gig is going to keep me on I-10 for the majority of my life. So I'll be able to go in and really catch up on some of these podcasts. But
nice.
That was the one I listened to. Their thing is interesting because I thought they were covering Star Wars TV.
Yes.
I was wrong.
Ooh. What do they cover?
When I actually went in and started listening to the episodes, do you remember last week when I said, oh, I should pick a year and just rewatch, read, game everything from Star Wars in chronological order?
Yeah, from the 70s to whenever.
No, from Phantom, well, I guess from the High Republic now all the way to Rise of Skywalker.
I see.
That's what they're doing for visual media. So when I did my big rewatch leading up to Rise of Skywalker, they're doing that. So they started with Phantom Menace. They're only doing TV and movies. They started with Phantom Menace. They're now into the Clone Wars, but that is what they're doing.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, it's really neat. Like I mentioned last time, one of the co-hosts is actually local to where I live, which was kind of cool. Definitely going to be listening to more of them, just because I find the concept fascinating. They're very similar in style to us, where it's two people and they talk about the episode,
and they're both
or whatever it is.
Like us.
One of them is a woman. I don't think any of the content I saw expressed any particular sexuality. The other is a gay man who is local here to where I live.
Love that.
So they're neat. Check them out. For my final one, I'm not going to stop listening to different podcasts, but I am going to stop doing the week.
I see.
Week to week, trying a different one. I'm actually going to go back and try to listen to substantial episodes of some of these. There's one that their Twitter account is extremely active, and it is 90% shipping Thrawn and Eli. So I went, yes, I absolutely must check this out.
Yes.
They are called, this is the most amazing name for a podcast, RuPaul's Pod Race. is who I'm going to be listening to this week.
Gotcha.
We're going to see if their episodes contain as much Thrawn and Eli content as their Twitter
tweet
account does. But oh boy, do I love their Twitter account.
Okay, I don't mind it. It's definitely a creative name, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I saw that, I was like, that is the most amazing name for a podcast.
I was say, wait till Thrawn shows up in the Ahsoka show, and then they're gonna really have a time.
Oh, that's gonna be exciting to listen to when he shows up in live action. They better do live action right.
Well, I would hope. Right. I mean, I would hope they would.
All the Thrawn obsessed people out there are gonna be watching them like a hawk, including us.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things where you're like, if they don't do this correctly, I'm boycotting Star Wars forever.
Disney Star Wars is bad now.
Yep, can't watch it anymore because you didn't pick a super hottie to be Thrawn. So
I've heard some interesting names thrown around. I don't know why they don't just, and they might do this. Random speculation for a minute. They might just cast Lars Mikkelsen in the part who voiced him in Star Wars Rebels. It would make sense.
I just don't like double casting in live action Star Wars.
I
don't like it. I don't like it.
Sense. Like, Katie Sackhoff.
That was fine.
Sackhoff was just perfect.
Well, that's because she's playing the same character. That's fine.
When you say you don't like double casting, you mean you don't like casting somebody different?
No. I mean, like, because he not in Rogue One as Daddy?
No. Oh, you're making the common mistake that everyone makes. So
who's that then?
Galen Erso is Mads Mikkelsen, who is Lars Mikkelsen's brother.
Shut the fuck up. I'm so stupid. Okay,
they are brothers, and they are both great actors.
Okay. Well, I was getting my Mickelsons mixed up. The Sons of Nick, I'm getting mixed up.
You're getting them mixed. Listen up.
Oh, well, no, that's different. If they're different people, then I don't mind that. Okay, that's totally fine. I thought he played Galen Erso and he also voiced Thrawn. And then in that case, I would say, no, you cannot do a live action and a cartoon and then do another live action. But if he has only done the one voice, then that's totally fine. He can do the same character live action. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is they should cast the voice actor.
Oh, then fine. Go for it. I mean, I was just kind of hoping for more like a, like a Michael Fassbender kind of younger kind of guy. I mean, not so young that he's not a daddy, but like daddy enough to be like...
Depends on how Chiss age. We have to put a massive pin in this, because if we start going off
you're right. There's enough to talk about.
For hours.
There's enough to talk about in this episode alone, so...
Maybe if we have a gap in our
we'll just do a Thrawn episode.
At some point in 2022, we'll just do a Thrawn episode.
One whole Thrawn episode. I love it.
We did get a mid-season trailer for The Bad Batch. I wanted to mention it.
Yeah. I watched it.
90% of the new content was in this episode, so it's not worth opining on.
Yeah, I watched it. I was like, I don't recognize anything new-ish, so
there's like one thing where I guess shots of clones on what we assume to be Ord Mantell, almost kind of like rolling up with their ATTs. That's the only thing that wasn't in this episode.
Yeah, and that's probably from I don't care. I'm not.
We could have speculated on stuff, but again, most of it is answered in literally this upcoming episode.
Alrighty. Bring on the Bane.
Yes. Daddy Bane. So this episode is called Bounty Lost. The thumbnail spoils the twist ending.
See, I purposefully did not go through the banner this time.
So the thumbnail for this one has Cad Bane on it, which spoils that he shows up at the end of the last one.
Right.
I guess they decided a week was enough time. Everybody knows that Cad Bane shows up in this show now.
Did they give him a poster on the Instagram?
They did give him a poster on Instagram.
So then it's over. They don't care anymore.
Haven't seen as much clickbait because Loki is coming out.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I don't see.
And that's dominating most of the clickbait currently.
That's dominating most of their feed too on their Instagram.
A healthy breathe.
Yeah.
Of less Star Wars antagonistic clickbait, but considering some of the stuff that's revealed in this episode, I expect it to be back within a day or two.
Oh, yeah, it's coming because we have so much to consider with
We
this.
have so much to reveal, but we open with an escape, a dramatic escape from Braca. The Bad Batch is being pursued. Crosshair is behind them. May or may not be flying. He's in the co-pilot's seat.
I just assumed he was flying it. I mean, I guess they could have a pilot. He was just gunning or something, but like
he does talk to like a pilot, but it's unclear whether or not he's contributing to this.
I see.
Beyond, he's got his wrapped up in his bandages and he's all burned out.
Yeah, we don't have a post, like he hasn't gotten fixed yet. You know what I mean? Air quotes. So we don't know if that's gonna mean anything or if he suffered any kind of long-term kind of visual damage, so we don't know yet.
We'll see where it's coming up later on. They're keeping it a mystery for now. With this scene, they escape and they have no idea where the bounty hunter is.
Right. And
Hunter makes the decision to go ahead and jump to light speed. I did find it interesting that Wrecker was in the gunner's seat. That was fun.
Yeah, because you can kind of think like, what are they all doing in this firefight, right? Like, so you have clearly Tech is the one driving, or Echo is driving.
Appears to be driving.
Right, Tech is the one who's like, I'm trying to make the calculations to jump right now, and then Wrecker's
Hunter is injured, and it seems like Hunter is normally in the gunner's position, but because he was injured,
gotcha.
Wrecker probably did it. We head over to Cadbane's ship. Now, I thought this was different, so I went and did some research.
Yes.
The ship he uses in the Clone Wars is called the Xanadu Blood. That is not this ship. This ship is called the Justifier. It was originally designed for the unfinished bounty hunter arc of the Clone Wars and was then used here. And in a minute, we will talk about how canon that arc is.
Okay, because when we get to it, I've watched the video today.
You've watched the video today?
Yeah, because I think somebody posted it very recently. It's like a rough animation of the scene.
Of the actual duel that they showed at Celebration one year.
Yeah.
Omega is in the cell. Togo shows up and is like, we have taken and hidden your communication device.
I love him so much.
Then Cadbane shows up, and Cadbane, there's a sequence where he takes his hat off, and you can see kind of a head plate that's like grafted onto his head. The interesting thing is, I think it was meant to be that he was supposed to be implied to have been killed in that bounty hunter arc.
Gotcha.
And they've now said that he survived it, and the plate is from his duel with Boba Fett. That's canon, apparently. They did fight.
Right.
They both shot each other in the head. Cad Bane actually took the blow to the head. Boba Fett just got his helmet dented.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I watched the little animation, and they specifically linger on the helmet with the dent in it, but then they don't show you what happens to Cad Bane. It just kind of like fades out. They're just like, oh, he's just lying there on the ground, and then it's like, okay. So
I think the implication was supposed to be that he died.
Right.
Like that was supposed to be.
Yeah, like both takes over or something.
If it was a different character or a different creative lead or a property that was getting more attention from the mainstream, I can guarantee you, and this was my first thought when I saw that there would have been absolute screaming from certain sectors about they're retconning the Clone Wars. They're retconning it out of the zone. And why do you retcon everything? Right. Like that was the first thing I immediately thought was, oh Lord, we would have had to hear that forever.
I mean, I liked how I just appreciate that he's still alive regardless. I didn't even know he quote unquote died in the show because I just assumed they just kind of like forgot about his storyline and then it was like whatever. And the show got canceled, so it was like, oh well, he's just kind of ambiguously somewhere out in the galaxy. But That was at least my headcanon. And then now he's back, and we know that because every time he appears on screen, they play some kind of Western jingle.
Because he's very Good, Bad, and the Ugly inspired. Like he's very Clint Eastwood inspired.
I love his music, by the way. Like when he does show up and he kind of comes downstairs to talk to them. It's like they just start playing that music, and it's so funny.
The Kiners are doing, I think it's the Kiners primarily are doing the music for this, who are absolutely fantastic brother composer team.
Right.
They did Clone Wars. I believe they did Rebels. They do the music for Extra History, which is a history YouTube series I'm quite fond of. They're fantastic composers. But yes, so Cad Bane apparently did have his duel with Boba. It did not kill him, as we suspected that it did.
Nice.
He contacts Lama Su. Lama Su was apparently who hired him.
Mm-hmm.
I found it interesting that he asked for unmarked credits in light of the revelations earlier in the series that they're exchanging old currency out for Imperial money.
Yeah,
he's still asking for unmarked credits.
That is weird, right? Now wait, unmarked. What kind of unmarked credits though? Like that's not Imperial credits, right? That's just some random.
That would be. I assumed it was Republic credits, but unmarked credits might be like.
That could just be anything.
Like a kind of like asking for literal gold bars, maybe, that unmarked credits can be exchanged for different types of currency.
Maybe. Because we see them. I need to know how the economic
systems of a galaxy. We do, and they are in fact unmarked, and they look like the credits that Sid is paying. So maybe it's like an underworld. Maybe the underworld uses unmarked credits.
Right.
I know it's a reference to. Yeah, Bitcoin. I know it's a reference to unmarked bills.
Oh, I thought it was a reference to Bitcoin.
But now I'm curious how it works. It is not. It is a reference to unmarked bills.
I'm just kidding.
i.e. bills that can't be traced. It might be does a galaxy far, far away have Bitcoin?
I mean, if they have lobster people that are red, even though they're not cooked, I'm going to go with yes.
What is cryptocurrency in a galaxy? This is another potential episode we need to do. That Charles analyzes the economic systems of a galaxy far, far away for 50 minutes.
That sounds like a 50-minute YouTube video that somebody wants to click on because they're curious, but then halfway through the video, they're like, why is there so many ads in this video? I don't want to watch this anymore. And then they click out of it.
I might repurpose this for content registered trademark later on. Ooh.
Anyway, what does Lama Su have to say about these?
So Lama Su says, bring in the asset alive.
Right.
Bring in Omega alive. It is Omega that they want.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly obviously. Cad Bane says, send somebody to the original, or send somebody to the rendezvous point. We find out where it is later. We cut to a scene of it's Lama Su, Nala Se, and Tan Wee.
Love a good Tan Wee.
I don't know. This will be the one thing. I told you in the pre-meeting we're going to find the one thing I didn't research.
Oh, if she was the same voice actor?
Well, that and whether or not she showed up in Clone Wars, because I don't think she showed up in Clone Wars.
I don't think she did. I don't recall at all. Now, to be fair, I don't remember most of Clone Wars, so it's fine. Because I was
Somebody needs to listen to Dark Side Divas then.
Clearly, because I remember nothing from Clone Wars because I literally, YouTube has been recommending me, Cad Bane stuff because of obvious reasons, like Disney's like somehow putting out that algorithm. And there's some random scene where it's Cad Bane fights Obi-Wan Kenobi and then Asajj Ventress's lover, supposedly. And then he steals one of their lightsabers and he uses it for a second. I'm like, I do not remember this at all.
Yeah, it was one of his first appearances.
Yeah, I was like, I don't recall that
Voss.
At all. Why?
I just double checked, and it looks like no, she did not appear in Attack of the Clone. She first appeared in Attack of the Clones. She did not appear in the Clone Wars at all.
Got it. Okay. Missed opportunity, but fine.
Missed opportunity. Didn't look up if it was the same.
I like it. I like that she's wasn't in it because I guess it was one of those like there's no reason for her to be here, so why shoehorn her in for nothing?
We had a section that we cut out. We didn't want to go on forever about Tanwi, but I looked it up, and yes, it is the same voice actress from Attack of the Clones, Rena Owen.
Nice. I love continuity.
Is back to portray Tanwi in this episode. So it was nice to see Tanwi.
I love continuity.
Lama Su chastises Nala Se for her personal interest in Omega. This seemingly explains that Nala Se helping them escape was in fact purely Nala Se.
Gotcha.
Is not on orders of Lama Su.
Right.
Who clearly knows about it and is pissed. Clearly not pissed enough about it to fire her, but pissed enough about it to send Tanwi to the rendezvous instead. And then he says, when you get her, confine her to the sublevels, extract the DNA, and then kill her.
Right. And I said kill Omega in my notes.
No, don't kill Omega. She must be protected at all costs.
Yeah, no, I found that very interesting. So by this point now, we were like, we were we knew that they wanted her for something. We really weren't sure what it was, but by now we know they just need her.
And they will explicitly state later in the episode why
we're almost there, but
her genetic material.
Right. But
in fact,
that is
literally 2 scenes later, they're going to explain what it is. But the next scene, Togo comes over and he starts fixing himself right in front of the cell, as opposed to literally anywhere else on the ship.
Yeah, like the cockpit. I mean, why are you here?
Maybe Cad Bane kicked him out, but surely across the room even would be better than right in front of the prisoner, because she does the obvious thing is I can fix your leg thing. Let me help you.
Where am I going to go?
I'm not going to go anywhere.
Right. We're on a spaceship. I can't go anywhere. I'm still a prisoner regardless.
Doesn't work for this scene. Obviously, the minute she says it, we're like, she's going to convince him.
Yeah. Of course.
And then we get to the revelation. So, they're talking about Omega in the ship, the Bad Batch is. And Tech comes out and says, I did more analysis of her DNA. It turns out Omega is a direct Generation 1 clone of Jango Fett.
Gotcha.
Just, I guess, gender swapped.
Right.
So I guess when she describes herself as enhanced, that may not be 100% accurate, but it turns out she is the last source besides Boba.
Right.
Who apparently was codenamed Alpha.
Which is amazing, by the way.
When he was being grown, which that makes sense. Because Jango demanded the first clone unaltered, it would make sense.
If the Alpha was the first one.
The Alpha was the first one.
Right.
And Omega was...
the backup.
The backup.
Yeah.
Just in case.
I wonder, though, if they purposefully made Omega a girl for the sheer fact of, in case we need a different type of DNA. You know what I mean? Just maybe the DNA is just different enough to where we need both.
It's also possible, and I just thought of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's also possible Jango did not know that Omega existed.
That's true. Because he only asked for one.
They might have told Jango that she was a clone of someone else. Or she had some other reason for being there. Or
he didn't even know she was there.
Right. She was made female to hide that fact that she was a clone of Jango. More information is needed on this. Or,
if you think about it, they knew, right, going forward, that Jango is the original source of the material. Right. So, and he's not a great dude.
He's a bounty hunter.
He's kind of questionable. So it's he's probably going to die soon. Within the next 5 years. We probably don't know when, but, he lives a risky lifestyle. So we need to have a backup plan so we can continue our genetic DNA. They said, sure, we'll give you Alpha or Boba. We'll give you the clone that you want. And then they just kept one for themselves as the genetic backup forever. So they could always have it.
There was a situation where they would have wanted to keep Boba around just for the genetic material. Because theoretically, you're going to want to just keep an
altered.
You just keep cloning the same
Right.
same person over and over again. You could technically have an unlimited if you unaltered them, but they did when they made Omega a girl.
Mm-hmm. So this also, not only are obviously everybody's a clone, right? But not only are they clones, but I would assume it's Alpha and Omega, so maybe they're twins.
So it's funny because I had two thoughts immediately after
Yeah.
seeing this revelation. The first thought was Boba Fett is literally a bounty hunter. Why don't you just hire him the same way you hired Django?
Right. Well, he was a kid at the time, and then he left.
Well, he's also quote unquote missing, so like
Right.
maybe
They
he
didn't know
hasn't
what
made
happened to him.
enough. Maybe he hasn't made enough of a name for himself by now as a bounty hunter
That's true.
that they know who he is. But like, also, I don't know why they couldn't like have Cad Bane.
Wait a minute.
Go
If he's
ask him.
unaltered, he's a. How old is he
He's
by this point? That doesn't really add up, right? Because he's not
like, oh geez, I think he was like
he was a teen by the end.
he was
of
a
Clone
teen
Wars.
by the end of the Clone Wars, so I think he's 15, 16.
So Omega's younger than him.
Well, no, because he might be closer to 14 or so, and she might be 13 or 14 years old.
Okay, so he wasn't a teen then. He was still a younger.
He was a younger, like he was like
Even after he was
8 or 9 when the Clone
quote-unquote
Wars
Boba
started.
Fett.
Yeah, he might be only like 13 years old, 12, 13 at this point.
He was just a bad seed. That's why he was so, angry all the time.
I mean, or he was trained by a bounty hunter,
That's true.
and that's
So-
his response to things. That was my first thought: is why
Right.
don't they just hire Boba Fett?
Well, but that's
I
what I'm
guess
saying.
they
So
don't know he exists.
they don't know he's around anymore. Yeah, or maybe they just because because the last time they ever see him is when he leaves with Django on
Correct.
Camino. So that was their original DNA just flying away. But they knew in the
That
back of
makes
their
me
head-
wonder, how do you go about hiring a bounty hunter? Like, clearly they had enough knowledge of the underworld to hire
Right.
Cad Bane, but surely those same registries or contacts would know who Boba Fett was.
Yeah, I maybe maybe his Google listing wasn't like up yet, and
Yeah,
so they just
maybe
didn't have
maybe
him.
it was down.
Well, I guess
That
I'm
was
getting.
my first thought.
Well, I guess
My
I'm getting
second-
at is that Boba is not old enough to be
Right.
a quote unquote bounty hunter yet at this point in time. So nobody cares or knows about him until he's an adult, and that's not for many more years after this. So
My second thought was, so you have a twin sister. Your feelings have now betrayed her too.
I hope they're twins only for the sheer
Kinda
fact that
twins?
the what?
They're kind of twins. She might be a little bit younger than him.
Well, I'm just hoping that they're the same age, is my point. Because this leads into my Book of Boba theory that Omega is a very important part of Book of Boba.
It seems like my force sensitive theory is getting well and truly dashed.
Yeah.
But your Book of Boba theory might
It's
be
starting to
accurate.
get stronger. It's getting more
Starting
accurate.
to get stronger.
It's getting there. I mean, at least the sheer fact that they called him Alpha. That was the only thing that I was like, oh shit.
If she shows up in Book of Boba, you are literally never going to let me live this down.
Oh, if she shows up in Book of Boba, I'm probably gonna cry because I'll be like,
Smug
this will be the
motherfucker.
first time that they, aside from Ahsoka, that they have truly taken somebody from the animated directly, brand new from the animated, and then immediately went to live action right after. Like this will be the first time that ever happened.
Really
So.
meaty portions. Omega obviously took over Lisa's Omega. It's incredibly obvious what she's doing.
Yeah.
She fixes his leg, which is nice. It's a save the cat moment, I guess. And
Yeah, literally, it's Bane Cat's cat, basically. So.
which I have some opinions on the concept of save the cat, but we will save those for some content registered trademark that I'm working on.
Gotcha.
She betrays him, obviously, crucially sudden but inevitable betrayal. And they land on. Now, I know they say it's Boravio in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
My first thought was, is that Bespin?
I swear I thought this was Bespin too. I was like,
They
Is this
literally
just like
say
a weird? Yeah.
Boravio in the episode before this, and I still thought, oh, it's Bespin.
I was like, we're in the cloud fucking
not.
city.
I even checked to make sure. Like, I went to Wikipedia.
You're like, it's not
to
the same
check
planet.
what sector it is. It's like, I'm not going to make the Seleucami mistake again, where I don't check the sector to see if it's a planet we know. Omega finds the comm. She escapes. She's running through the hallway. She manages to contact Hunter. Enough to talk to them, but the signal is very weak. Cadbane catches her. He says the line by hook or by crook. I looked up whether this was a reference to a specific Western.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it. Apparently it's a common phrase that means by any means necessary.
I figured.
Couldn't find if it was a specific Western reference, but I also didn't have long to research it.
Right.
If you know whether or not it's a specific reference to a Clint Eastwood or otherwise Western movie,
call our hotline at
let us know.
1-800.
Comment on the tweet or the Instagram page, or scream it at me in the street.
Call 1-800-TONWE is dead.
Yes, because that is the next note I have of, oh no, Tanwi.
That was so sad. I was like, really? I was like, Dave Filoni, you fucker.
I loved her in Attack of the Clones. She's so nice and she radiates like elegance, and
I just like
she's
her
dead.
Sparkly eyes.
She's
I like
dead.
how their eyes are so like, they look like galaxies in their eyes. Like they're all like sparkly.
Like, no joke, when I was a kid, I loved the Kaminoans.
Yeah, because it was very like OG Alien, like very original kind of aliens. Like,
and we'll get to that in a minute. That there's even more OG Alien here.
Right. But that's kind of like what they're not what they're based on, but you know what I mean. Like it's
the same aesthetic. They've got that ethereal, kind of sterile white. Right. It's like walking into like heaven essentially, and you've got these angelic beings that radiate poise and grace. And
I just love that they have like hooves for feet. Like they're like very like I mean, maybe they're not like actual horse feet, but you know what I mean. Like they walk. They're like a fun design. Yeah.
So Tanwi is dead. Fennic Shand killed her.
Very sad.
Rest in peace, Tanwi.
Tanwi is here or not here.
Fennic Shand is here. There's a brief standoff between Fennic and Cadbane. Togo runs up and tries to grab the credits. A firefight ensues, at which point Cadbane tosses a grenade. Fennic kicks it into Togo, blasts him out, and loses the credits.
I literally wrote down, damn, when she kicked that bomb. It was probably the coolest choreography I've ever seen. Like, I don't know why. It just like, it was.
Her choreography in this is just.
Yeah.
The way she fights. And because you just know Ming-Na Wen can do that in real life.
Exactly. And that's what I kind of like about it. It's so accurate. It's so weird to think about, but it's like, because obviously the live action came before the cartoon character. And because it's basically just Ming-Na anyway. You know, even though she's animated, it's still her.
A lot of times these animated fight scenes, like you can't imagine them doing it outside of this medium. With her fights in this episode, I didn't check, but I'm like 99% sure she probably consulted and maybe even did some motion reference.
I was thinking that. I was thinking for this episode at least, they may have put her in some kind of suit and just recorded her doing a couple different moves or something, and then they copied it, and then they were like, let's just throw this on the animation.
I love that Cadbane loses his credits by being greedy and by being an idiot and tossing the bomb. Very kind of hoist by his own petard sort of thing.
Yeah.
They fight. Omega runs away. In the infamous words of George Lucas's Revenge of the Sith script, they fight.
They fight. But so it's a good fight scene.
It's a good fight scene. Want to clarify that we're trying to make sure this episode is not 2.5 hours long. So we're not going to stop and talk about every time they fight.
When she lifts her right arm and punches him in the left cheek, and when
there are some movements that she specifically does later on in the fight that I love.
Yeah.
But we're not going to stop and talk about them.
Okay.
Omega runs into a room with a bunch of old clone pods.
Yes.
So they're old. They've kind of
withered away,
molded over. Yeah. You get kind of the old, if something's been in a lake for a long time or something, like if you leave a glass of water out for a week, what's going to grow in it?
Right.
It's very cool. It's very the Snoke pods from Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
Or I had actually noted reminded me a bit of, at least in their design, that cylindrical shape reminded me of, and I guess the ones in Camino do this too, but this one was a little more blatant. The pods on the image of the clone emperor from Star Wars Legends. There's an image where there's a bunch of them in these circular pods, and he's like burst out of one of them and he's naked and he has a lightsaber. It's from one of these like Dark Empire things.
Oh, it's dark. All right.
They're not the same color, but like that's immediately what I thought was the pods they grew.
Gotcha.
The clone emperor in. Did you have any notes on the pods, Bradley?
I was just getting like, I thought for maybe a second, because Omega kind of wipes her hand on one or kind of looks at her reflection in one. And it was kind of like, is that like, I didn't think it was Snoke, but the idea was there that like, oh, it's like some kind of gangly looking alien thing.
And I didn't catch this until my second viewing, but when she wipes the pod up and looks inside, because I knew the conversation with Hunter was coming later.
Yeah.
So like she's worried about being an experiment.
Right.
So the framing of her like inside the pod looking worried is meant to invoke her fear of being an experiment in one of these pods, like one of the abandoned experiments of the Kaminoans.
Gotcha. And I was thinking too that maybe this might have been a Kaminoan.
It was. They specifically say earlier in the episode, go to our old research facility. So it's a research facility that they abandoned.
Right.
But they just left the pods there. Like they weren't even worth taking them.
Got it. Because like I think I read somewhere that they've like altered themselves like over the generations to be kind of these perfect beings almost. So maybe this was like a early Gen 1 Kaminoan. We
see when they drop down on Fennic later in the episode, we get a good look at one. They look a lot like a cross between the Kaminoans and the OG aliens.
Got it. So yeah, Fennic shows up.
Well, Omega gets a signal out to the Bad Batch. Fennic shows up.
Mm-hmm.
She tries to get Omega to come with her.
I told you that she's not a bad guy. I don't know if I said this earlier, but this is the point where I wrote down Fennic just wants to, quote unquote, help Omega. She actually does technically want to help her.
Genuinely does want to help her, yes. And inadvertently does end up helping her throughout the episode. But Omega doesn't trust her because of Pantora.
Right.
Drops a clone pod on her. I wrote down gross in my notes.
Yeah, I know. I actually kind of felt like maybe it was just in my mind, but I felt like I heard Fennic say like in my mind, like, ew. So yeah, I thought I heard her go like, ew.
I think you might have misheard that.
Sure, maybe this is my own personal.
I mean, it was gross.
Yeah.
Omega runs out and she gets the idea to do the flight pods. This is my one criticism of the script for this episode. I wish they had established the flight pods. Or earlier in the series, I wish they would have established that flight pods were a thing. Because they seem to kind of come out of nowhere.
Gotcha.
I have written down in my notes, firefight ensues.
What kind of fire?
We're getting to that. Omega escapes as Cadbane and Fennic are fighting again. She's pursued by Togo, who she like leaps on top of him and like rides him down.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
I thought that was funny because he like, I feel like he does things like he doesn't expect certain things to happen, he thinks he's like, oh, I can stop her easily. And then it's just like, no, you can't.
No. Togo's just enough of a threat that he is a threat. You know, whenever he shows up in the scene, it's not going to be like, oh, never mind.
Right.
But at the same time, he is much more amusing. I probably would have enjoyed him a lot if I was a kid.
Oh,
I still enjoy him.
I agree. I thought he was so cute because I totally forgot about him until last week. So that's why I was like, oh, he's great. I want him all the time now. I want him to just join the Bad Batch.
I would have a toy that probably wasn't Togo, but I would have picked I had a toy of the assassin droid from Attack of the Clones. So I probably would have replicated this with action figures when I was a kid. It's a very kind of cute scene, but I know that you are waiting for me to talk about the next one. I don't know
what you're talking about. Is there like some kind of flame device used in this next scene of fighting? Like, I don't understand.
There is the return
of something
for the second week in a row, Dave, of my arch enemy, my nemesis, the flamethrower, and this is getting out of hand because now there are two of them.
He has dual flamethrowers.
I didn't check Clone Wars to see if he'd ever used them before.
Yeah.
But the minute he pulled out the flamethrower on her, I went, oh my God, this bullshit again. And then he pulls out the second one.
Yes.
And I'm like,
to his defense,
worst Star Wars property, worst one, hands down, has eclipsed The Force Unleashed as my most hated thing. The Bad Batch sucks now. Disney, Star Wars is no longer canon. Fuck all this.
I was going to say, in his defense, though, 2 is better than 1. So I like the fact that he has the 2. Like, I think it looks cooler, but that's just me. But I don't know how he's making them work, because Boba and Mando, when they do it, they have to press a button on their wrist and it comes out. When he does it, somehow, like, what is he like? Click his heels together, and then the things come. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense.
First of all, where is he storing this?
Yeah, where's the fuel?
At all. Second, where's the fuel? Second of all, how is he activating it?
Yeah.
I don't know if we saw this in the episode.
Maybe I'll have to watch it again. Maybe there's like a little thing. He probably pressed 2 buttons at the same time, and he was just like, beep. And then, like, they both came out. I don't know.
Although I do need you to own up to whether or not 2 is better than 1 is listed on your Grindr profile.
2 is better than 1. No, I think I deleted that as one of my tags.
So after the return of my arch enemy, the flamethrower, which is useless, by the way, not only is useless, but allows Fennic the chance to move to a tactical difference. So it is a net loss.
Yes, because now she's... Yeah.
Fennic, or net loss for Cad, because she's able to move out of the way.
He's not having a very good day.
No, he is really not. She tosses like bolas at him, ties him up, and he goes over the edge. I briefly thought, yes, here comes the Disney villain death. But then his
R2-D2 boots come out to play.
And I'm like, yes, this is not the end of Cad Bane.
Yeah, because I didn't know he had those. I didn't remember he even had them until, like I said, I watched that clip randomly today after I watched the episode of him fighting with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he had them in that episode. And I was like, oh, he's always had R2-D2 boots. Like, he can always has flying boots. So I was like, well, of course he can be flung off the side of a building and he'll survive.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
He'll be fine. So he survives. The Bad Batch successfully tracks Omega's pod down as it's about to be destroyed
into the abyss of clouds. Like, I was confused about.
I think it's a gas giant.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like Bespin, where it's a gas giant,
right? And
if she'd gotten too low,
it would have sucked.
The pod would have been crushed.
Got it. Okay.
Under the pressure. That is my understanding of how physics work. I am gay, so don't hold me to that. I also remember seeing a frankly traumatizing thing on the History Channel once they were like,
what happened if you go to Jupiter?
Yes, it was that exact thing. And they showed this lovely image of a plane flying through with all the passengers. And then they did this like fucking extended sequence of the plane being destroyed and everyone dying.
Yikes.
It was like horrifying. So anyway, they tell Omega who she is and why the Kaminoans want her. I appreciated they did not keep this a secret.
Yeah, because you know that was coming. Like I was expecting them to be like, oh, we got to keep this a secret for 3 or 4 episodes until it inevitably comes out, and then Omega doesn't trust us anymore, and then there's a sad day.
Once again, Dave has no time for this. He's not going to drag the things out, and they're going to get resolved when it's appropriate to get them resolved. Bane's systems were sabotaged by Fennic Shand, so now he's briefly trapped on this planet.
Dane Ferrick.
Stop trying to make Dank Ferrick happen. It's not going to happen.
I was almost half expecting one of them to say that. Just to canonize it even more. Like, just to be like, oh, they've always said it.
And we find out that Fennic Shand was hired by Nala Se.
Yes.
I checked.
What did you say?
Episode. Here's what we said in our previous episode.
Okay.
We said that I had said, I think that it's either Lamasu or Nala Se.
Right.
So I was partially right. So I had said one or the other. I was partially right. It was a Kaminoan, and I did say Nala Se as a potential option. Kind of drifted toward Nala Se.
Right.
Credit where credit is due. You are actually the one that said, I will bet, and this is my theory, you said, that Nala Se is like a third party. That she's specifically hired Fennic Shand, not for the Empire, not for the Kaminoans, but as a third party. So I was mostly right. You were 100% on the money.
I'm pretty proud of myself for that. That's pretty good.
Yep. You absolutely nailed it. You
know what?
100% nailed it.
I'm actually surprised that we were able to get that close to a guess, because we didn't know anything about the Cadbane twist. So we were under the illusion or the impression that any quote-unquote bounty hunter that was hired, i.e. Fennic Shand, because that's the only one we knew anything that was going to be in the series about, we were like, oh, obviously the Kaminoans hired her. But clearly the twist was that she was not hired by the Kaminoans at all. She was hired by Nala Se. So, and I'm actually kind of glad they did that too, because I like Fennic Shand, and I don't necessarily see her as a true like villain. I feel like they're setting her up to be this, I don't want to say anti-hero, because I don't like that term, because especially when they now like with Batman and stuff, like I hate that.
She's a non-villain antagonist.
Yeah, she's just an antagonist in this show. She's like might not be with the heroes, but she's not necessarily against them.
She's not evil.
Right. There's not, yeah, that's a better frame. And actually, I really liked, we kind of skipped over this, but I liked how Cad Bane said to her, he said, he's like, you don't have the skill to take me on.
Because she is supposed to be relatively new to the game.
She's new to the game.
She's new to the game.
Right. And so she's still trying
to
make
a name for herself. Turns out she does have the skill to take him on.
Well, she's trying to make a name for herself. But I like Fennic Shand. I think, again, they're setting up more character development for her now, so that when we get to Book of Boba, if they start doing things with her, we're not going to feel cheated. Like, we're not going to feel like that's out of her character, because we don't really know her character.
We're learning more about her character. The only thing we really knew about her in Mando Season 2 was works with Boba Fett. Bad Batch, we're finally learning more about who she is.
Right. Because they kind of like alluded to her. They were like, oh, she's like one of the most dangerous bounty hunters in the galaxy. Like, it's kind of just what other people said. And that's just like her reputation. But that doesn't tell us anything about like, oh, clearly she's not trying to hurt Omega in any way. Like, she is trying to actually help her, even though she's going about it not necessarily in the nicest way, but that's because she's being paid. So
yeah, I'm definitely happy we were right that she's recurring.
Yes.
I'm definitely happy we were right about her being not hired by the Empire.
I like that too, because the reoccurring thing makes it feel less of a throwaway. Because correct. I feel like if you put her in the trailer and you only show her one time, it's a throwaway. Like I said before with Saul Guerrera. I don't necessarily think that's the last time we've seen him, because why the fuck else would you randomly introduce him for no reason other, you know what I mean? Same with Cad Bane now. Like, there's no reason
They've
why
used
they're
him
not
more
here.
than once.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like these people, I mean, I'll maybe, aside from like Tarkin, I would say all these other people are relatively important so that they might show up more than once.
Some of them too, like, I would have to know the specifics of the animation team and how they worked. Some of them, like Trace and Rafa, it feels like they were able to use the assets from the Clone Wars. But some of them, like Saw and Fennic Shand and them, are being designed from the ground up, particularly Saw, who got a redesign. They have been trying to reconcile his appearance in Clone Wars with Forrest Whitaker forever.
For years. Like,
they have been trying.
Just make him
trying to be the transition. No, it was good to have that question answered. I think this may be the last time we see her in the series.
Yeah.
I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah.
We will see.
Well, if they are going with this storyline of, you know, she's trying to do her own, you know, Nala Se is doing her own kind of agenda with Omega. Like, she wants to keep her alive because she has an attachment to her for some reason.
Well, she says Lama Su, as long as Lama Su can't get his hands on her,
right, she's safe.
That's enough for her.
Right. So I'm thinking that, like, it may come up one more time with Fennec. I don't know. I just feel like they're going to have to do something with Fennec in this show to be like, okay, she's going to go away and do something over here to be like, okay, now her life is going to continue up until Mando.
Rule of threes. She may show up a third time.
That's in comedy.
This is not a comedy.
But no, is Rule of Three not just a comedy thing?
But I think it is a comedy rule.
But I guess theoretically you could translate it.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 3 is such a nice number.
That's true.
People love 3. People love things showing up in 3s.
I agree. I'd like it.
We get a final scene of Omega kind of walks through the ship. I thought it was funny that Tech was like asleep in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I'm afraid that I'm going to be a experiment at a tube. And Hunter's like, I promise we're not going back to Camino. And in my brain, I went, don't make promises you can't keep, Hunter.
I literally wrote down, never going back to Camino. I doubt it. I explicitly think we are going to go back to Camino.
I explicitly think we will have to go back to Camino, and that will be a source of conflict. And we will get the "you promised" moment.
Right. Oh, either that or I genuinely believe that this show is going to show us the end of the clone making process. Like, they're going to show us that either the Empire is going to wipe out the Kaminoans to be like, nope, you guys can't make clones anymore because we don't want that anymore. And then they're going to turn against them or something. Or somehow, some way, we're going to see just the end of their whole entire operation. Like, it's going to blow up or something.
Dr. Pershing in Mandalorian wears the Kaminoan emblem.
Right.
Like, he's wearing a suit. So they're clearly some sort of version of them is still around.
Well, maybe that's what I mean, though. Maybe, Nala Se somehow escapes at some point by the end of the show and starts her own little cloning facility somewhere, or teaching people how to clone or something. I don't know, something stupid. But, like, that's why, I don't know. I don't think that some of these people are going to make it out alive.
I've stated before that I was glad that we keep going back to Camino because I think it's interesting to see their internal politics and how they're having to deal with the Empire. So yeah, I suspect too that we're almost certainly going to go back at some point.
And then I also noted that this felt like a premiere episode for a new season.
It's a mid-season premiere.
Yeah.
They just never did a break.
Exactly. And so that's what because last week we said that was like the mid-season finale. This is the mid-season premiere. Like, it felt exactly the same, like a part 1 and a part 2. Like, now we're on to part 2, and I feel like we're done with the Bad Batch has to go to a planet and do this thing, and then this thing happens. I think now we are in the end game of the arc. Like, it's going to be like the final steps of the next 8 episodes, if they're going to be the same, 16 all throughout. I think that this is going to be the final arc of just their story, like, what they're going to do. So,
do you have any final thoughts on the episode, Bradley? Because I have a surprise for you after that.
Okay. Well, my final thoughts are, yes, I love Fennic Shand. Glad Cadbane is not dead yet. I hope he never dies.
Yeah, I liked the episode. Probably in my bottom tier for me. Like, I like all the episodes.
Yeah.
This one, I wasn't super wild about.
Interesting.
Obviously, I loved it. But the Bad Batch was sidelined for most of it.
Which is kind of why I liked this episode the most.
They were sidelined for most of it, but I also didn't feel like we got enough ingenuity from Omega to justify sidelining them. Fennic Shand does a lot of the work here.
Right. She's fighting Cad Bane the whole time, so it's not really Omega doing anything.
It's not really Omega necessarily outwitting. She does outwit both of them. I don't know. I liked it, but I'm not going to say I loved it.
Okay. That's fair.
So before we go, we had some technical difficulties, and we had a break of about 5 minutes where we weren't recording. And in that 5 minutes, I went over to Twitter, and they have revealed who is writing Patty Jenkins' Star Wars movie.
Oh, wait, is this breaking news?
This is literally breaking as we are recording this.
Okay, what is the breaking news?
I wanted to mention Hollywood Reporter has reported, Lucasfilm has not commented. Okay. Hollywood Reporter has reported that Matthew Robinson, who co-wrote The Invention of Lying, is going to be the one writing the Patty Jenkins Star Wars movie. And I guess he also wrote Love and Monsters.
I know none of that. So that all sounded like not basic to me at all.
It's all Hatice to you.
That's all Hatice.
Well, I thought it would be fun to mention at the end that some news broke literally while we were having technical difficulties on the show.
Oh, it says he did Edge of Tomorrow. I would have known that one if you had said that. But
why didn't any of these articles mention that? I love that movie.
You know what's so funny is I hate Tom Cruise for Scientology reasons, but I love Emily Blunt and I love Edge of Tomorrow.
That's such a good movie.
Such a good movie. It's
such
underrated.
a good movie.
Underrated.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm glad you pointed that out because the articles that I was reading, both of them mentioned Invention of Lying and one of them mentioned Love and Monsters.
Got it. Well, to be fair, the only other one I know on here is Dora and the Lost City of Gold TV Nickelodeon movie. So yeah.
Let's just focus on Edge of Tomorrow for now.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's focus on the one thing.
Let's focus on that one. So that was our last bit of news to round out the episode.
Okay. Well,
I literally saw this. I don't know if it broke during the recording of this episode, but I literally saw this while we were having tech difficulties.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's fun. She's doing a movie, right?
Yeah, Patty Jenkins, the Rogue Squadron movie.
She's doing Rogue Squadron movie. Okay, cool. All right, well.
Let's do our socials. Yeah. Yep, you can follow us on Twitter at Goldsquadrongays. I've been shouting out the different other queer podcasters that I've been listening to on the Twitter account, so go ahead and follow that to keep up with us and anybody else in our space. I try to signal boost as much as possible. You can follow our Instagram at Goldsquadrongays. You can also follow me on Twitch at CWRogers6. I play Star Wars games every Monday when these podcast episodes come out. Those are the socials that we have for now, but very soon we will be able to announce some others, so we're excited about that. Bradley, do the thing.
And join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gays.
Yes, the Clone Emperor was a thing.
Okay,
before Rise of Skywalker. It was fucking stupid when Dark Empire did it too.
Great. Loves it.